Thank you for joining us. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, will deliver a brief statement ahead of this morning's Security Council session. He will take questions afterwards. If you're called to ask a question, please remember to state your name and your news outlet. Thank you.
Good morning. In case anyone has forgotten what life is like in Israel right now, allow me to remind you. Over the weekend, a Hezbollah drone attacked the northern city of Binyamina, injuring more than 60 people and killing 4 of our bravest heroes. Then on Tuesday, a terrorist opened fire on a crowd of civilians in Ashdod, center Israel, murdering a police officer and injuring 4 others. Thanks to the heroic actions of an armed civilian who was in the scene, an unimaginable massacre was prevented. While we confronted terrorists on the ground, Hezbollah launched 320 missiles and drones on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish people, hitting a nursing home in Herzliya, a city near Tel Aviv. These vile acts of terrorism will not go unanswered. Israel will continue to take all necessary steps to protect our citizens from threats, both inside and outside our borders. We will do whatever is necessary to dismantle Hezbollah's terrorist infrastructure and ensure that the displaced in the north can safely return to their homes. Meanwhile, we hear a lot of accusations about humanitarian efforts in Gaza, so I want to make it clear. Over 1 million tons of aid have been delivered via more than 50,000 trucks, including over 700,000 tons of food. The problem in Gaza is not lack of aid. The problem is Hamas, which hijacks the aid, stealing, storing, and selling it to feed their terror machine while civilians suffer. Despite all these challenges, Israel continues to uphold international law, going above and beyond our obligations. I'll give you a few examples. We recently coordinated the transfer of patients from a hospital in Jabalia to another location in Gaza. We delivered 70,000 liters of fuel to maintain medical services, and we continue with the polio vaccination efforts. While we are determined to destroy Hamas, who committed the horrific massacre of October 7th, and to bring back all of our hostages, Israel remains committed to working with our international partners to ensure aid reaches those in need. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, it's Pamela Falk from U.S. News and World Report. What is your take on the Biden administration's deadline of 30 days to increase aid to Gaza or risk U.S. aid?
So we have ongoing dialogue with our colleagues in Washington. There are a lot of issues manageable. For example, as we speak, Pamela, you have hundreds of trucks inside Gaza waiting. So they passed already the checkpoints, Kerem Shalom or Erez, but they are not capable of being delivered because of corruption, Hamas, poor management, corruption. So we are working with them to find ways to support and to improve the humanitarian efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ambassador Michelle Nichols from Reuters. The US said in the letter that was sent that the amount of aid entering Gaza in September was the lowest for any month this year. The UN says there's barely any food left to distribute in northern Gaza, and that in the first 2 weeks of October, 85% of their attempts to move aid from south to north were denied by Israel. WFP says no food aid has entered northern Gaza for 12 days. So is this your response to the US letter that Hamas is to blame and there's nothing more Israel can do?
So first, as I said a minute ago, we are working with our partners to improve the situation, but you have objective obstacles on the ground. And the example I gave you right now, that as we speak, you have 500 trucks that pass the Israeli checkpoints, but the aid is not being delivered. It's being wasted, it's being waiting there, because you have problems of truck drivers, of people who don't want to drive. So the blame is not on Israel, the blame is on Hamas. And we have to acknowledge that. You know, there is no shortage of aid. When you look at the amount of aid that is being delivered into Gaza, the problem is with the logistics to make sure it goes to the people who need it and not to the hands of the Hamas.
Where are most of those 500 trucks?
Next to the checkpoints.
Which checkpoint?
We can provide you the exact information.
Ambassador, this is Gabriel Zondo from Al Jazeera English. This morning, the UK Prime Minister, in a debate to Parliament, said his government is considering sanctioning your Finance Minister and your Minister of National Security. What's your response?
Well, I don't know what is the reason for such a statement. You know, we'll have to look into that. You know, sometimes you have domestic politics involved in many of those cases. But I think one should look at the action of the Israeli government. And I stand behind the decision of the Israeli government. We act according to international law. We are in a war fighting 7 fronts. And I haven't seen statements like that coming from the UK about leadership in Tehran, leadership of Hezbollah, or other places. So I would recommend all those democracies first to look at what's happening in Tehran and Beirut before to coming and blaming us. Yes?
Quick follow-up. Israel bombed the municipal office in the southern Lebanese city of Nabatea today, killing the mayor. Why?
Well, you know, we target Hezbollah bases. We know that Hezbollah is being involved many times. They take advantage of civilian facilities. I can look into this specific incident and give you answers, but we have good intelligence on what's happening in southern Lebanon, and we have proved it, that they cannot hide. They cannot hide, and we will find the terrorists of Hezbollah wherever they are. Benny, please.
2 questions. First, is it time for the IDF to take over the management of distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza? And the second question is, there were press stories about an Israeli plan to divide Gaza into 2, north and south. Your comment.
So I think, you know, the distribution of aid is a challenge. And I know many of our partners are discussing it with us, because you look at the amount of money that is being spent, amount of aid that is being delivered, and still we are discussing the challenges, and there are challenges in Gaza today. So I think, yes, it is important to have this discussion. I don't think we have the desire to be the one who actually handling distribution of aid inside Gaza. Our long-term goal is not to stay in Gaza. I think in the future we will stay in the area and we will make sure that security is being held properly, but we have no desire to be the one running the daily life in Gaza. Thank you very much.
What about that division of Gaza into north and south and evacuating all the north, as was reported in the Associated Press and other places?
I'm not familiar with anything concrete now, but there were a few ideas at the beginning of the war, and I think the main challenge is what you do with Hamas. They're trying to stay in power, and in order to support the population, you have to remove Hamas. So I think that's the challenge we have to realize, that there will be no prosperity for the people in Gaza as long as Hamas is in charge of what's happening there. Thank you very much.